that is in Denver and has been working with Earth Force to do some World Water Monitoring Challenge. But I just hit a button just now that is broadcasting this particular Google Hangout event to anybody who had the link to watch. So maybe your parents are watching, maybe other students are watching, but people can be watching this all around the world live as we're having this conversation. So the first thing that I need to do is introduce myself. I'm Stacy Rafalowski, and I'm the Education Director for Earth Echo International. We're an organization that runs the World Water Monitoring Challenge program. And we actually have another one of our staff members, Sarah Powinski, who is on as well. Right now she's just a little globe right there. She is. And then we also have Philippe Cousteau, who is the president of our organization. And so those are three of the people that you see at the bottom of your screen, guys. We're excited today to share lots of information between, how many schools do we have on here now? We've got 4, and I think we may have one more that's joining today as well. And we want to hear more about what you guys found. So what you found while you were testing the quality of the water. And before we get started, I do want to let the folks watching, not those of you that are in the classrooms right now, but I want to let folks watching know that while a lot of times we do take questions kind of from the audience, today we're really going to be focusing on questions from you guys in the classrooms right now. If we get a chance, we'll take some questions at the end, but from what I've seen of you guys as you've been getting online, you guys have lots to talk about, so we're really excited to hear from you guys. If indeed you have questions at the end that we weren't able to answer, or if you're just watching in the audience and aren't able to be in one of the classrooms today, you can email any unanswered questions that you may have to either education@earthecho.org or monitorwater.org. Either place would you be able to get an answer to your question if you have any questions later on today. So with that, I'm going to introduce our the organization Earth Echo International's president and co-founder, Philippe Cousteau. He is here to talk to you guys today a little bit about the work that you guys are doing and how important it is. So I'm going to give Philippe a chance to say hello because he's been sitting there patiently.
There we go. Thank you, Stacy. Hello, everybody. I am delighted to be here. I'm actually in a hotel room in Boston, so forgive the nondescript hotel-looking room behind me. We are really excited that you were able to join us for this webinar today to talk about the terrific work that you've all been doing in Denver with the World Water Monitoring Challenge. And I know that you all have been working hard. And the point of this is really to learn and hear about what you have found and discovered. And so I'm just thrilled. You know, Denver is one of my favorite cities in the entire country. I'm a big snowboarder and rock climber and mountain biker. I love fly fishing. So Colorado is pretty much just my heaven. And I don't get there very often, but I do love Denver very much. So I'm jealous of all of you. I heard it's going to be an epic year for snow, so I know you're geared up for that. But it's terrific. We're here to talk about water, not the frozen kind, the liquid kind. So with that, as Stacy said, I know we're going to have folks from outside these classrooms joining us today. And you know, so I want to give them a little bit of an insight of what the World Water Monitoring Challenge is. Of course, remind everybody that knows what it is, and those of you who don't, it's really a program. It's a global program that empowers and equips anyone, anywhere, no matter where they are, to protect the water resources that each and every single one of us depend on every single day. And our team at Earth Echo, led by the amazing Sarah, has been working with people from LA, you know, Los Angeles, all the way to Malaysia, to South America and Pakistan, and you know, countries all over the world that participate in this program, and of course, communities all across the United States as well. And working with them to better understand the health of our waterways through a simple water quality testing kit and program, like all of the students that have joined us here have participated in Denver. So I know we only have a little bit of time to get started, or to today, so we better get started. And I will pass it back to Stacy.
I was on mute. So right now it looks like we have 4 of our schools that were able to join so far. If we have one more, then we will introduce them at that time. But these 4 schools have been working on your World Water Monitoring Challenge water testing, along with Earth Force, like I said before, CH2M Hill, and the EPA. And I just wanted to make sure that we gave a little shout out to both Donnie and Erica. I think they're in 2 of those classrooms, for all their help and support out in Denver. So if you've got one of those 2 people in your classroom, give them a big hand right now, because they are fantastic. I see everybody's on mute, but I can totally see it. What we want to do today is let each one of you guys talk about what you found when you did your testing, and then you'll have a chance after you kind of talk about your results to ask a few questions of Philippe. So I just wanted to say, I wanted to give each of you really quickly a chance to introduce your school. So if somebody can stand up from St. Rose and just tell us a little bit about what classroom, what school, and what grades you got there.
We're at St. Rose of Lima, 7th grade. We collected this on Monday, October 26, 2015 at 1:30.
Do you want us to go through the full data already?
Well, so why don't you go ahead and give us kind of the general data points, and let's talk about what kind of inferences you may have from that.
So the data we collected was air temperature was 63 degrees Fahrenheit and 17.2 Celsius, and then our water temperature was 64.6 degrees, and then our dissolved oxygen was 3 ppm parts per million, and then our pH was 7.5, and our turbidity was 15 JTU, Jackson's turbidity units.
Great, thanks, guys. Philippe, do you want to put that a little bit in context for everybody? I don't know if everybody watching is going to know kind of what the test kit really involves.
Absolutely. So let me see here. All right. I think I'm unmuted now. So basically, you know, the test kit provides the opportunity to test water quality. And just to make sure everybody's on the same page here, when we talk about water quality, we're talking about the chemical, physical, biological, and radiological characteristics of water. Basically, the health of a body of water. And the World Water Monitoring Challenge kit provides an opportunity to do 4 different tests. And what you just heard from the students at St. Rose is these 4 tests include acidity. And acidity measures how acidic or basic a liquid is. And basically a neutral pH of 7 is ideal in bodies of water for animals and plants to survive. The second test is dissolved oxygen. And that measures how many molecules of oxygen are in the water. And of course, plants or animals, I should say, in the water, fish and crabs, whatever it may be, just like human beings on land, need oxygen to breathe. So without oxygen or low levels of dissolved oxygen, then animals can get weak or even die. So dissolved oxygen is a very important indicator of the health of a body of water. Turbidity is the clarity of water. It measures how much debris, how much sand and silt and other materials may be suspended in the water and make it less clear. And this can impact ecosystems in aquatic ecosystems in a variety of different ways, limiting how much sunlight comes into the water. It may also determine issues around pollution, etc. So turbidity is an important indicator of the health of an aquatic ecosystem. And then, of course, temperature. Just like human beings, animals need a relatively stable temperature to survive. Some colder, some warmer, depending on where they are in the world and what species they are. Nevertheless, they have all, we've all adapted to particular degrees and levels of stable temperature. And if things break too far outside of those levels, then it can spell very serious problems, can create very serious problems. animals in ecosystems.
All right. So essentially, it's like a doctor. You guys are doing what the doctor does when you go for a checkup.
That's a great way of putting it, Stacey. It's absolutely a little doctor's checkup. And of course, the World Water Monitoring Challenge. One of the things that's so great about it is that people have the opportunity to share that data with the rest of the world through the website and through the app that we have. And so not only are these students collecting information in their communities, they're able to share that information with the global community and help inform information about the overall quality of these bodies of water. And that is critical if we're to get a global understanding of water quality in this world. So not only are they engaging in citizen science at home, they're really sharing that data with the world.
And right now we have 4 different classrooms that are doing that just in one community, which is awesome. So wanted to follow up with you guys at St. Rose and say, okay, we've got some data from you guys. Did you make any kinds of observations about the data? Did you feel like your checkup of your waterway was healthy?
Speaking for the class, based on our results, we found a good mix of organisms as well, and we were able to tell, at least at this point of the river, South Platte River, that's in pretty good condition so far.
Fantastic. So it was South Platte?
Yes, South Platte River.
I don't think I heard when you guys started what the body of water was. So fantastic. Well, what we're going to do as we move through right now is since I know some classes have to leave earlier than others, we tried to put it in order so that you guys would each have a chance to ask a few questions. So I didn't know if you had any questions prepared that you wanted to talk with Philippe about.
At this point, we're just trying to share the data and just get an idea of how all the other schools are doing with their work.
Okay. Sounds good. And if you guys have some questions, just let us know. Just flag us at some point. If somebody can just raise their hand and just stand kind of in front, we'll come back if somebody thinks of a question that you have along the way.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think next up we've got Odyssey. Do you guys want to share what your results were and kind of how you assessed your water body? First, tell us where you are and what grade and what water body you assessed. Can you move a little closer? Can you get a little closer to the mic? Thank you.
For the 6th grade Odyssey School, we collected our data at November 2nd, 2015 at 1:45 p.m. at the South Platte River.
The air temperature was 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so
the pH in the water was 7.5. The dissolved oxygen is 5 parts per million.
And the turbidity was 45 JTU.
The water temperature was 20 degrees Celsius.
And the data we collected, most of the macros we collected were sensitive to pollution, and we collected around 70 to 80% of these, and we collected around 20 to 30% of tolerant macros.
Okay. So what did you guys think? Do you feel like your area, the South Platte, was healthy?
Yeah. What does that tell you? I'm curious. It's interesting seeing the relative correlation, a little bit more turbidity, a little bit more dissolved oxygen from Odyssey than St. Rose, both on the South Platte. But the macroinvertebrates that you found. What does that tell you about the system in your opinion?
Audrey, you want to share what that tells you? No? Ian, ready? Step up close, please, Ian, so we can hear you. What are your big conclusions based on the data that we shared?
I think that it probably means that it's a little bit kind of good because there's more dissolved oxygen, and also there are a lot of macros that are intolerant to pollution, so that they can only live in clearer water, so that it would make it so that it was more likely that it's clean.
So this is really important because one of the reasons that it's important to test multiple different parameters is that without this bigger picture, it's hard to really tell if a system is healthy. So I'll give you a great example. In a river, you might expect there to be a higher dissolved oxygen because the water is moving and it's oxygenating the system. And so maybe DO isn't necessarily a complete indicator of the health of that system if there may be a lot of dissolved oxygen because it's a fast-moving river or in an area around rapids, say for example, not knowing exactly where you tested, but as an example. And the reason we then look for pH or for test macroinvertebrates is because that can give us a broader picture. And so if the pH is really off, or if there's not a lot of pollution-tolerant macroinvertebrates, even though the dissolved oxygen may seem like it's in good parameters, the other pieces might be off, and that can give us a bit bigger and better picture of what's going on. And the really good thing about, and the really important thing about testing the macroinvertebrates, as well as testing the dissolved oxygen and the pH, is that when you test the dissolved oxygen and the pH, you're getting a snapshot in that very moment of what the health of that system looks like. What the macroinvertebrates allow is because they're there over weeks and months, you get a longer-term picture that, okay, this is probably relatively consistent, that the system is in pretty good shape because these animals are present. If those kinds of animals aren't present, and yet at that very moment when you test the water, you find pretty good results, that might also tell you something that, okay, even though this snapshot right now in the water, it looks healthy, maybe there's something else going on periodically, pollution coming through, or maybe there's a large pollution event that passed through that will have killed off those macroinvertebrates, and can perhaps lead you to continue to investigate and test. And that's one of the things about the World Water Monitoring Challenge, is that each kit has 50 different tests, and the point is that we encourage students to continue testing over a period of time, because that really gives us a picture of what that ecosystem and that water quality looks like, much better than a single point in time, which can be a snapshot, and it's still very, very useful to begin to paint a picture. But being able to take those tests over time and be able to test things like macroinvertebrates that give us that longer-term picture is also very, very important. So I found that really interesting. Thank you.
I think they have a question there at Odyssey too, and I see that you guys are muted, but I can't get you unmuted. There we go.
So are you okay asking a question? Okay. So Audrey, you felt like you had a question, right? Okay, will you step up a little closer, then you can scoot back? Nice and loud, Audrey.
So the question for my table is, how could you balance Denver's needs with the South Platte's needs?
Did you guys hear that question okay? This idea of how do we balance the needs of the city of Denver with the needs of the river, the South Platte River? How do we come to that balance? Are there maybe some ways where you've seen examples where cities have been able to try to find a balance between water quality and then all the needs of an urban area?
Well, it varies, of course, from community to community. But I will say that when you look at the kinds of inputs that can damage the health of water quality in an ecosystem, be it resource extraction, mining, for example, or oil and gas, or perhaps it's inputs like from agriculture of agricultural waste and pesticide or fertilizers. or maybe it's point source pollution. It's pollution directly from human beings, sewage. Maybe it's non-point source pollution, so it's pollution coming from runoffs of roads and roofs, etc. There's a couple different ways that we can balance those needs. Of course, water is the single most precious substance that any of us have access to. I mean, we can go for many weeks without food, but depending on where you are, you can survive 2 to 4 days without water. And so, when we look at historical situations where, for whatever argument, be it an economic argument or an engineering argument, people have said that it's either too costly to properly treat the water or too costly to restore habitat or riparian shoreline habitat, or create marshes, or restore the types of natural systems that can help filter water from farmland, perhaps, or that it's too expensive for industry to clean up or treat the water before they discharge it into the environment. Those arguments always fail in the long run, and the reason they fail is because it's always more expensive and more difficult to clean up a mess after you've already made it. And so I would argue that the best balance for any community and their water supply and their water resources is to put those water resources first. No excuses. Because it will inevitably and always cost more money down the road. It may save some money now. It may be easier. Well, we don't want to invest in effective water treatment, or we don't want to invest in restoring some habitat. It may save some money now, but in the long run, it will affect people's health, and it will end up costing municipalities and communities more money than they save. And they're just basically putting that burden on when you all grow up and on your children. And so, not speaking specifically to Denver and the South Platte, as I'm not an expert in the issues in that specific river with relation to Denver, I will just say that I was speaking with some folks, for example, in Long Island just a few days ago, who are facing very real problems now because they didn't invest in water treatment along the coastline of Long Island. And now, because of that, the water is considered toxic. And the very rich oyster fisheries that used to exist and employ a lot of people and make a lot of money and feed a lot of people are shut down, even though the clam and oysters are bouncing back, and there's a lot of them. It's because the water quality is too degraded, and it's choked off an entire industry and killed a lot of jobs and hurt a lot of people. And this was a decision that was made 20 or 30 years ago to not invest in an effective waste management system. And now they're scratching their heads and saying, cleaning this up will cost us billions of dollars, when investing in an effective system in the first place would have been around $400 million. So this is a headache and a challenge that communities around the country are dealing with when they don't recognize that we have to put our water resources first.
So I think I'm finding out that St. Rose is going to have to leave right now. So we just wanted to say bye, guys. If you have any other questions, shoot us an email, and we would love to talk to you more. Go back and check your water again. Philippe, do you want to say anything? All right. What? Let's see, Odyssey, you guys, I'm sure you have a couple of more questions, but if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and let's go to Annunciation real quickly and let them share their data and just introduce themselves, and then we can kind of go through each of the school sites again and answer some questions as they come up. So can we go ahead and have somebody from Annunciation introduce the class?
Hi, we're here. All right. Here, come on up and speak loud. Here, go ahead. Speak extra loud.
Our school is Annunciation Catholic School. We are the 7th grade. We collected our data on November 3rd, 2015 at 1:30 p.m. Go.
Okay, so while we were down at the river, we were taking nets, and while we were down, we found a lot of pollution-sensitive macroinvertebrates, and to name some of them, they were caddisfly larvae, mayfly larvae, and cranefly larvae, which made us think about it a lot because people say that our water is polluted and that it's not that good, and we found a lot of pollution-sensitive ones, which means that our water is just looks polluted from the outside, but the water inside is that the water is doing well.
We also found many other groups of macroinvertebrates, like the pollution-intolerant ones, which are like crayfish, freshwater clams, and flatworms. We also found moderately pollution-tolerant, which are leeches, midget larvae, and then isopods, or aquatic solids.
What about some of our other data that we found, like the numbers?
Our dissolved oxygen, we found 4 parts per million, 4 parts per million, and our pH is around 8.5. 8.4, 8.5, but it's always higher than 8.3.
How do you know it's always higher than 8.3?
Because when we test our alkalinity with dimethyl sulfate, it always turns pink.
And we thought Odyssey brought up a really good question about balancing the needs of river health and the needs of the city. That's actually something that we're exploring in our expedition. So a couple of kids wanted to speak to that question. So what could you guys say to that question about balancing the needs of the city with the needs of park? That's okay. Any one of you guys can talk about that.
We are exploring that question. Yeah.
How?
So, by the South Platte River where we are at, they're trying to make a park by the river that introduces the water with the park together. So the city and the water help each other out all at the same time. So that's what we've been looking at to see if our water is healthy, if we can still use it in different ways and still help the water get cleaner from us looking at it instead of it being dirty, but the water being fresh.
And what's the park that they're building that we're checking?
Rhino Park!
So we will we'll pass discussion on if you guys had any other things here.
Okay, just wanted to check and see, Philippe, did you have any questions about those results?
It broke up there for a second. Now, you mentioned, because the pH seemed a little high and the dissolved oxygen a little bit low, more in line with what St. Rose was, which is also a little bit low. And their pH, I believe, was 7.5. As was Odyssey's, and their dissolved oxygen was 5 parts per million at Odyssey. So what? Yeah, you mentioned that the pH tends to be high there normally. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, so first off, we dismissed at 3, so we lost a fair number, but we actually have a River Watch club that tests with a little more advanced setup every week. So we've actually got a couple of other students who are in the River Watch club but not in the 7th grade expedition. But yeah, we actually test pH with a pretty sophisticated probe every week, and we also check for phenolphthalein alkalinity, which we get consistently every time. So we are pretty much all year round above 8.3.
Interesting. And is there any sense of why?
We're not totally sure. Sorry, we've lost a lot of our kids here, but we do have a massive storm drain outlet that an outflow that is right by our testing site. It drains a good 5 square miles. That is just upstream of our testing site. So that is a possible influence.
Yeah, it sounds. You know, it's typically 7 is the number we're usually shooting for. So it's interesting to see that you're finding a consistently high pH, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, it looks like we're hitting an end of day today. I want to really quickly make sure we go ahead and get to Shoemaker. Shoemaker, can you guys introduce yourselves and share your data with us as well?
Hello.
Come on.
Hi.
All right, you're on.
Hi, we are from the Shoemaker School, and this is 4th and 5th grade. The data we are gathering is from the Cherry Creek Trail, and also the Cherry Tree is connected to the South Platte River. Platte? Okay. What? So, on day 1, October 30th, the turbidity was 60 units.
The dissolved oxygen was 8 parts per million. And the phosphate was more than 5 parts per million.
The nitrate was 3 parts per million. And the pH was 7.5. Day 2, November 5th. The turbidity was 8 JTU.
The dissolved oxygen was 4 parts per million. And the phosphate was more than 1 part per million.
The nitrate was 2 parts per million, and the phosphate was 7. The pH, excuse me, the pH was 7.
Interesting. So you have a few different numbers floating around here. Now, are these in 2 different places or 2 different times? I didn't catch that.
These are in the same.
It's 2 different days.
2 different days, but in the same place.
Yeah.
2 different days. So I noticed that the phosphate and nitrogen fluctuated, the pH fluctuated, and the dissolved oxygen fluctuated quite a bit as well.
The water level was much lower the second day, but the first day was really high.
Yeah, it was really high. You had to go in
there. Is there farmland nearby? What do you think might be contributing to some of the phosphate and nitrate?
There's golf courses on both sides of it, so yeah, that probably would be a cause. But then there's also a highway to its right. Then it's flowing. It's to its right.
Yeah.
There. But yeah, there's a lot of gas coming from the cars, so it probably is like it's polluting the water.
You know what I love about this, your results, is it shows the difference in over time, and which is so important to investigate, and particularly that you did clearly some good due diligence and a little investigation on what the local surroundings are, which is also important to take into account. And I think that so often, we drive down the road and we look outside the window and we just see developments and parking lots and highways running next to rivers and lakes and streams, and we don't maybe appreciate just how much impact human development can have on these systems. Even if there's not a big pipe dumping sewage into these lakes, into these streams, and into these rivers, that things as simple as a roadway or a golf course can have a really dramatic influence on the health of these water systems.
So you guys, I think we have a few folks still left. I know a few places had to go, but I wanted to check and see, are there some more questions for Philippe? And it can be about your water results. It can be about his show, Awesome Planet, if you guys have seen his show on Fox or on Hulu, or some of the work that he's done in the past. He just got back from a really cool trip where he got to see a lot of animals that I've never gotten to see in the wild. So there are a number of different things that he does, and so just wanted to see if you guys had some questions. I thought I saw somebody at Shoemaker had a question.
Oh, also, Annunciation, we got a few kids that are back now that we checked in for our after-school program, so we've got a few people back.
Okay, awesome. If you guys have questions, just jump in, flag us.
My first question is, what did you study during college that helped you do your work now?
Well, it's a great question. Well, you know, when I was in university, I actually studied history and communications. And so I always loved exploring and going outdoors. And growing up, I would always go play out in the yard and climb trees and do things like that. And I was always interested in how the world works. And while I loved and always enjoyed science classes and things like that, what I really loved to do was do writing and learn about people and the world and how people work and how the world works. And so I studied history because I always thought history was interesting, and I studied communications because I knew that I enjoyed being able to tell stories about how the world works and sharing, like I do now, with people about the world. And so communications and public speaking was really, really important for me to make sure that I was prepared to do the kind of work that I do now. And I always tell young people the number one piece of advice, no matter what you're interested in, whether you want to be an engineer or a doctor or a teacher or a scientist or a writer or a filmmaker, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, one of the things I always recommend is to study some sort of communications. And you don't have to wait till you're in college, but maybe get used to making presentations to your class or to your school or sharing stories about different things that you've done, because communications and public speaking skills are great for any kind of passion and job that you want to have and that you're interested in the future. It's one of the best skills that you can have, is being able to talk to people and communicate what you care about and information to people. So that was a big part of what I studied at school, because I wanted to do what I do now.
How long have you worked? How long have you worked with water, and why? What inspired you to get involved with water conservation?
You know, I've been working with water since I can remember, and certainly since I started Earth Echo when I was in college. And it was really my grandfather and friends of his that inspired me to do the work. Growing up and listening to their stories and realizing that when we look at water, you know, one of the things that we love about the World Water Monitoring Challenge is the whole point is not only to collect information about the world's water quality health, but to get you all outdoors and get everybody recognizing that, you know, exploring the world around us is the most exciting thing we can do. And you know, not only did I hear stories from my grandfather, but my mother always encouraged me to go outside and go explore nature and go ask questions and see how things worked. And that was what really inspired me to want to keep asking those questions and keep finding out the answers and share those answers with the world and hopefully get other people excited about exploring nature and getting outdoors and protecting nature. So it was from when I was little, growing up listening to my grandfather's stories and having my mom encourage me to go outside and explore.
Just want to follow up Philippe's answer there and ask, can any of you guys tell me, Philippe's grandfather did a lot of cool stuff, but he invented something. Does anybody know what that was?
Here.
I see Mateo. Mateo, can you tell me? Oh, I know your name.
Scuba gear.
Nice.
Nice job, Mateo. So that's, you know, a lot of people don't realize that that my grandfather was the first person to ever go scuba diving, because he invented scuba diving. And before he did, you know, people really didn't know very much about the oceans. and didn't know about Nemo and Flipper and all the things that we see on television today. Nobody, you know, when people were your my grandfather was your age, nobody knew what any of that stuff was. They didn't know what sharks looked like, and whales and fish and all sorts of coral reefs. And so he went out there and was one of the first people to ever film that, and the first person to ever go scuba diving, to invent scuba diving, and help educate the world about the oceans and water.
Thank you. I'll just say that we have a lot more questions, but maybe St. Rose has some questions too? Or is that Annunciation? Sorry. Annunciation. I don't know if you guys want to jump in with some questions. Or we'll keep going.
You guys go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
We're enjoying listening to your question.
Are you proud that your Are you proud that your grandfather invented scuba gear?
I am. I'm very proud of my grandfather and really the work that he did to help explore the world and start helping people ask a lot of these questions about the health of water and the health of our oceans and protect them.
Did you? Can you see this stuff? Did your grandfather invent stuff like this, or did he invent the whole suit?
That's exactly what it was. So he invented I see you drew there, the regulator and the tanks. His idea was to put a tank of air on your back and to breathe out of it. But the problem is that in a scuba diving system, the air in the tank is pressurized. And it's pressurized to about 2,000 psi, pounds per square inch. So when you open that valve, the air comes flying out there because it's under so much pressure in that tank. And so the challenge, the engineering challenge, and the question that he asked was, how can I create a little valve that I can put onto this tank so that when I take a breath off of a hose, it pulls air out of the tank, but not so much air that it blows all that air in my lungs, but the same amount of air as if I was breathing air like we all are right now on the surface. When you go, how could I create something that would automatically change the pressure of the air from the pressure under the tank, which is really high pressure, to air pressure that I could breathe in? Because if you breathed in and turned an air tank on, it would blow out your lungs. All that air would come rushing in. It would hurt you. And so that's what they invented, was the valve that goes onto the tank that changes the pressure for the tank to air pressure that you could breathe. And that's what was so revolutionary.
We actually do have one question over here, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Here, I'll put it up here.
As our study for ecosystems, do you have any advice for our trout tank in the backyard?
Tell them more about that.
Well, we're having a trout tank
You have to talk towards that.
South Platte River, and we're gonna test the waters and see how healthy it is and if trout are able to live in it, because they're becoming more extinct.
So the trout are disappearing in the South Platte?
Which kind of trout?
Huh?
What kind of trout?
It was cutthroat trout.
Cutthroat trout.
And I believe cutthroat is a native species, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and is there some invasive trout in the South Platte?
Yes.
Like, are there trout that people have introduced? So yeah. So there's a lot of factors. That's really interesting. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, since other fishes kind of been taking over our ecosystem, it's kind of our river ecosystem. It's kind of ruining it and water's becoming more unhealthy, and we're not having enough for our native animals to live on.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's happening a lot all over the country. So what is the experiment? You're doing an experiment. What is the plan? What are you all going to do?
You guys can.
It's to raise our own trout, and then afterwards to release them into the wild. So then we have more trout in our own natural rivers. So we'll raise them from birth. Well, not birth. Well, from like minnows, and then release them into the wild. So then there are more of our native trout, our cutthroat trout out there, and we don't have to be worrying so much about them going extinct.
So
Although we're having some trouble. We're having some trouble getting our hands on cutthroat trout. So we're seeing if we are able to raise them. We're trying. We've got our tank set up though.
All right. Well, listen, I can't say I have much advice for that other than you know, trial and error, experimentation. You know, it's that's what science is all about. And you know, as Stacy always likes to say, science is poking something with a stick and seeing what happens. And the great thing about it is there's never any one right answer. And that's the whole point, is that you guys are going to find out what's going on and investigate and do an experiment and hopefully have a real positive impact at the same time on the system and those creatures. So I think I just say rock on.
I'm going to say make sure you let us know what happens, because these are stories that we want to be able to tell, because if you guys can figure out how to do this, which I have the absolute most faith that you can, then what we do, part of what we do in our job, is we come out or we take stories that you make yourselves, videos, different things like that, and we share them with kids all over the world. And we say, you know, look at what these guys did in Denver. Now, if you're in Alabama, if you're in Maine, if you're in Mexico, if you're in France, if you're in Australia, can you do what they did where you are and make a difference? So we love to hear your stories, because who do you like learning more? Who do you like to learn from more? Do you like learning more from adults, or do you like learning from kids, other kids?
Kids.
Me too.
Me too.
You learn more.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, we've got time for maybe one more question. So does one school have one more question we could close up with? I see you guys over there at Shoemaker, so. Okay. Let's see, who's in, have we got somebody over at Shoemaker ready?
Yeah, let's go.
How did Asiatic clams get in Denver if they come from Asia? In the Cherry Creeks. I mean, we found them, but how do they get in the Cherry Creek?
Well, that's a very specific question. I don't know how they got into Cherry Creek, but I can say that you know, it's a big problem all over the country, are invasive species that have been introduced in a multitude of different ways. Sometimes people will release them. Sometimes you have them coming up through upstream through rivers that have been that reach out to the ocean, or in big canals or big riverways where there are ships that will come over from Asia with ballast water. So, for example, the zebra mussels in the Great Lakes, we believe, were slowly made their way from coastal areas introduced by big ships. So it's you know, lots of different ways that those could get introduced. I don't know, but it's a very important message and story. Invasive species, as they're called, because it's a problem that's happening all over the world, in the global world we live in. And another great example that, you know, ships, if they wanted to, could spend a little bit of money to install these filters in the ballast water, UV lights that will kill any larvae or small little animals that get in the water, say when they take on water in Japan or China, and then could filter that water so that when they come over to the east coast of the United States or west coast of the United States, they're not releasing all these animals into those ecosystems. But people don't want to spend that money, and governments don't want to make industry spend that money. And yet now invasive species are costing our economies tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars a year. So as I said earlier, it's always more expensive to fix the problem than to do it right the first time. And invasive species are a really scary thing in the world today, and we really have to do everything we can to try and get rid of them. But in some cases, they're here to stay. And what that teaches us is that we need to make sure that we invest the money and the time and the effort up front to prevent problems from happening so that we don't have to clean up someone's mess later.
And I actually see Donnie. Donnie, did you have an answer that you wanted to provide on any of that, or were you just saying adios?
I'm going to say goodbye, but I don't have an answer, but I look forward to finding out with the young people at Shoemaker School.
I agree. I agree. I can't wait to hear more. So with it being the end of the day, guys, I wanted to go ahead and say thank you again to all of the schools that participated. We really appreciate you guys, the students at Annunciation, St. Rose, Joe Shoemaker, Odyssey. Thanks, you guys. We really enjoyed this today, and now we'll have it out there for everyone else to share. Also wanted to acknowledge that Earth Force and CH2M Hill and the EPA have been great working together for this event. And Philippe, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of close us out.
I couldn't say it better, Stacy. It was a terrific webinar. Thank you so much. And a lot of people are watching, and we'll all learn something. I certainly learned something. And you know, I'm really curious, as Stacy said. Please keep us posted on how the trout program's going with the cutthroat trout. Please let us know further testing that you conduct and what kind of results you're getting. I'd be very curious to see what kind of results may be changing with the park development. You know, what's happening over the course of the year of different seasons. You know, maybe when it's colder and people aren't playing golf, the river will be a little bit healthier. That pH might go down. So I think it would be really interesting to see, you know, some of those impacts and follow you all tracking that over the coming months.
All right, everybody. Well, that'll wrap us up. Thanks so much. All right, and keep uploading your data at www.monitorwater.org. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Now I can swim with sharks.